Hi, I'm Marcia Kimpton, and I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm actually a producer, writer, director of narrative films, and I am actually considering doing a documentary on this wonderful man, Paul Harding, who we're going to interview because he basically saved my life, and I know that. And I want to give you a little bit of my story first before we get into the science of what he taught me. So I have lived in only big cities, New York, LA, San Francisco, for the last 30 years. And I couldn't sleep probably for 10 of those years. I thought it was just a city life. So I moved here right outside Aspen to Old Snowmass. And if you know where that is, there's not a lot of Wi-Fi. And I couldn't sleep for the last 2 years. And I had a new house. And I was really confused. So I went to my acupuncturist, Karen Nance, amazing woman in Carbondale. And she suggested it wasn't hormones and it wasn't age. It was probably my electricity in my home. And I'm like, it's a new home. It's absolutely amazing. So she got me introduced to Paul Harding. He came into my home. He showed me where all the voltage, the electricity, the dirty electricity. He said, turn off all your electricity. Turn off your Wi-Fi. Get your smart meter off. And guess what? I have been sleeping ever since. So I'm indebted to you, Paul. I feel honored to have this interview right now, mostly because most people like myself, and I feel like I'm educated, I read everything, had no idea that electricity was affecting my health. And I did know that Wi-Fi was affecting it because I could feel when I was on the computer or the phone, my fingers were tingly and I could get a headache if I was on all day working on a film, like editing. But I don't think I had any idea how this was affecting me. And I was thinking, talking first about the 5 tips that you gave me immediately and why you think people should immediately turn off their electricity. And one of the tips was to use Ethernet. The second tip was to go back to my power breaker, which I do now every night, and turn off my electricity. The other tip is the Wi-Fi isn't just turned off by the modem. So I found out, you had to go to the source. The other tip was calling Holy Cross and changing my smart meter, which we'll talk about later. And then the other one was, I had no idea about the LED lights that I had in the house that were affecting me. So is this common? You're an EMF specialist. I know that you have a website, EMS, was it totalemfsolutions.com? That's how I reached you. But do you get calls like this all the time of people like me that are, I would like to say smart and had no idea that electricity was keeping them from sleeping?
All the time. In fact, you remind me of me when I first found that this was an issue. And when I started,
because you were getting sick, right? When they put the smart meters on your homes, right outside or inside Phoenix. You're not outside Phoenix, right?
Right, not now, but before I was right in the center of Phoenix, and I had come across a site that told me to turn my electricity off to see what it was like. It was called justproveit.net. I don't know if it's around anymore. But I was really excited. I could not believe I was experiencing what you were experiencing, good sleep for the first time in years. Probably.
But you know what's shocking about this? Karen Nance, my acupuncturist, is a friend of yours, told me, I'm like, I'm not turning it off. Now I tell every one of my friends, turn off your electricity and turn off the Wi-Fi from the source, not from the modem. Everybody tells me I'm crazy. They're not willing to do it.
No.
And they're not even willing to at least try. Because the reason why I think you've saved my life and are saving a lot of people's lives, because you get a lot of sick people come to you after going to hundreds of doctors and not figuring out what is wrong with them, and it's the electricity going through their body, is that we have to sleep. We have to have that rejuvenative time. And I haven't slept, honestly, well in 10 years. And now when I go to the big cities, I just use alcohol to sleep because Ambien doesn't even work. So my question to you is, immediately, before they see you, shouldn't they just try that to see if they sleep better?
Well, yeah, and sometimes there's another source. Sometimes they can turn off all their power, and there's another source that's coming in from outside.
Well, explain how you measured it. You went around with these outrageous apparatuses that a lot of people don't have. A lot of EMF specialists can't measure the way you did. So explain to me what you did.
Well, I used an oscilloscope, and that's my main tool. And I look for internal electric fields with a process called voltage drop, and that's taught in Basic Electricity 101. And I do that because it was referenced in studies. One of them was from the Naval Weapons Laboratory.
Wow.
And Herman Schwann back in 1968. And so I'm just copying what these other brilliant scientists were finding and how they found it, and referencing books from Johns Hopkins Physics Laboratory.
Yeah, and we're going to get into some of these great
Yeah.
scientists and people that affect you. But back to just the basics for people to
Yeah.
understand. They hire you, they
Yeah.
contact you on Total EMF Solutions. You come into their house, and you don't charge enough. Let me just tell you, okay? You're way too inexpensive for how much you're helping people, okay?
Thank you.
So you go into their houses, and then you make suggestions, which we'll talk about Dave Setzer, and I haven't gotten my Setzer apparatus yet. But when you go through, you measure the voltage so people can actually see when they're on the computer, because I'm now going to get, well, I've already gone the keyboard. I just need the plastic old keyboard to go into the computer, the laptop. You
Yeah.
see the radiation, you see the microwaves, you see the electricity. Then you go over into the bedroom, which we found out we had voltage from my security system. We had basically almost all the light panel, the Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
leaning up against my bedroom, which I had no idea. Now I'm having to spend, unfortunately, thousands of dollars to move it, but it's worth it because I can sleep.
Yeah.
So you go into each area, and then you find out if there's dirty electricity, which is sometimes the rheostats. So I'm going to change. I don't want rheostats anymore, by the way, because it's dirty electricity. So then you find out if your neighborhood, has too much electricity going outside the house, the ground, what the electricity, and some people you even suggest to move because it's their life. And most people don't realize, especially with all the Wi-Fi going faster right now, all the speeds, all of us attached to this, how it's affecting their health. But people remember when we got the cell phone and we were holding it to the ear and there were brain tumors, right? And everybody put it down. And then people remembered that even with those little ear pods or little, the headphones, that's not healthy. So they start texting. Why do people not see right today what you're doing is affecting their health? And can you talk about some of the health effects that you've seen because of this electricity?
Well, I don't think anybody really makes money if you're healthy, first of all.
Good.
So
That's controversial.
well, that is, but
We
they
like
don't.
being healthy.
Right. We like being healthy, but nobody makes money when you're healthy, other than maybe the outdoor stores or something. They've been taught this. They've listened to professors, and these professors have been partially right. Like for instance, the electricity. You mentioned electricity. So electricity, when it comes into our home, it's 60 hertz, so 60 cycles per second. It has to alternate, has to send those ions back and forth from the source to your house at 60 times per second. And so your skin protects you. The impedance of your skin is like 3,000 ohms. Okay, and I know this because that's what Herman Schwann found.
Okay.
In the Naval Weapons
and again,
Laboratory.
we're going to
Okay?
have a
So,
lot of reference to science
but,
at the end.
Right, and so they've been told that talking about how electricity could be affecting you is tinfoil hat science. The interesting thing is that most people that tell you that the electricity couldn't be bothering you don't know how the light switch works.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is you're telling me that 60 hertz is the safe 60 cycles per second, but
Yeah,
we're
that's
talking about
used
the
in therapy.
kilohertz frequency that's now going through us that I had no idea until I met you. Honestly, most people don't.
No.
That is going through just by the electrical panel, just by the Wi-Fi and the computers. How many kilohertz are we usually getting now when we're using all our tools?
So the kilohertz frequencies are, it's static, okay? It's static, found within the electric field that you're absorbing. And interestingly enough, I had a conversation with an electrical engineer that worked for Raytheon down in Tucson, and he swore up and down that there was no electric field present until something was being used. And I had to show him the $1,900 electric 3D electric field meter and
show them
and show them look,
because you can't see the electricity.
right, you
which is
can't
part
see
of
it,
the problem.
and so we don't focus on it. I think a lot of people go out and they get their degrees and then they specialize in whatever the field that they're supposed to specialize in, don't really think outside the box,
Right.
because
But we're electrical beings.
Yeah.
And so when you put that much electricity, I mean, I can see how it can make a nervous system problem. It can make a headache. It can make diabetes happen
Yeah.
because so much electricity is going in through the body, and especially
Yeah.
if you can't sleep at night,
Yeah.
then it basically is keeping it like an electrical current, like you're electrocuting yourself. But talk about the potassium and sodium in our cells that get affected and therefore dehydrated and affect our health. And we can get viruses easier because our immune system is lower because of this electricity.
Right. I think we'd have to start at the 1999 EMF Rapid Report and go to pages 26 and 27.
You know your stuff.
and see where they say that anything over 1 millivolt per meter of internal electric fields is associated with cancer because it affects the cellular transduction pathways. And then we would have to look at science, the mechanism of nerve conduction block induced by high frequency sinusoidal currents or whatever, right? So they're using these frequencies, and they looked at 2 models in this paper. It's published at the National Institute of Health in an IEEE magazine. And they found that frequencies greater than 6 kilohertz, okay, they got into the kilohertz range, were able to open up potassium channels, ion channels, and sodium ion channels. Well, if you look at what most people are suffering from today is low potassium and low sodium symptoms.
So
Just
basically
look it up on the
dehydration
internet.
because they're up
Dehydration,
against
right.
the computer so much,
Right.
and therefore their body can't fight these viruses.
Well, it's not just the computer, but they could be in their house. They could just be standing there, and the internal electric fields could be produced going,
Which
up
is
one
what
leg and
happened
down
to
the
me.
other. Right, right.
During the day, now I even turn the power off, but at
Yeah.
night I need to not have the
Yeah.
power dehydrating my body so I
Yeah.
can restore.
Yeah, and so once you get rid of those kilohertz frequencies, not the 60 hertz so much,
Right.
but those kilohertz frequencies are very important. It's the static within the wireless system, and or the information in the wireless system, and the static within the electric fields, and they can enter the body in all sorts of ways, and that's what I focus on.
And
that's where I
you
get
meet
results.
a lot of cancer patients. Of course, we don't know what causes cancer, but this cannot help the body if you've got a lot of electricity going and you're trying to fight cancer. Let's talk about some of these great men that have influenced your life. Dave Stetzer, Sam Milham. Sorry, my handwriting's so bad. So talk about those two and why they've affected your life,
Yeah.
made you healthy,
Yeah.
and now you're making other people healthy with
Yeah.
your knowledge.
Well, I read a book by Sam Milham. It was called Dirty Electricity. And Sam Milham's a MD and an MPH. He's an award-winning MPH.
Oh my God, his resume is extraordinary.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah,
that.
incredible man. And sharp as a tack. And he found that homes that were electrified, because that's what they put on the death certificate back in the 20s and 30s, there was a 50% increase in the death rate when the homes
amazing.
were electrified. Right, and then Dave Stetzer was the guy that filmed 30,000 cows, dairy cows, being exposed to internal electric fields created by ground current and lighting and that sort of thing. And so that was creating internal electric fields also.
And we know birds are dying and animals in
Yeah.
Africa suddenly, like
Yeah.
immediately, because we're
Yeah.
raising the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
And so Dave's a senior member with the IEEE. He has a Graham Stetzer unit,
Which I'm going to buy.
which is like a bolt.
Will you explain to me what exactly I'm buying? I'm going to buy 20 for my house and put them into
Yeah.
the plugs. What are
So
they?
you're gonna buy basically some capacitors,
Okay.
and those are going to short those frequencies, those kilohertz frequencies. They're going to attack those kilohertz frequencies and get them off the electric field in your house.
So I don't have to go back to the garage and turn off the
R-
power
right,
every day.
right,
But I'll still do
right.
the power off at night for my sleep, right?
Well, if you want to,
But
some
I may
people
not have
some people don't have to.
Because of Dave Stetzer developing this
filter,
very simple.
right.
It's almost like a plug.
Right.
You're putting into a plug. Okay. And it just eliminates basically the dirty electricity.
Right.
That I can't see with my eye, but I
Right.
feel in my body.
Right, and so that'll clean up the field that you're in throughout the day. You can't just turn off the electricity at night and then beat yourself up during the day. You're compare yourself to like a race car, and you're out there on the track getting beat up all day, and then you go in for your pit crew, or you repair at night, and they've got a lot of work to do.
But I
And
was like
so-
everybody else. I just thought it was another problem.
Yeah.
I just thought, okay, I have a thyroid problem. Thyroid problems are very common now with doing the research that you showed to me because of the increase of electricity. I just thought it was stress. My doctor thinks, okay, you get older. It's about hormones. I'm like everybody else. I had
Yeah.
no idea the electricity was affecting my thyroid and bringing my low immune system. And if I hadn't moved out in nature and you are in the cities, I think it's got to be pretty dire, don't you?
Yeah, well, the Naval Medical Research Institute said that it affects thyroid, and then there's a NASA paper showing the same thing, and there are quite a few others. So our government agencies, they found in the 70s that it did affect that. So, and I see this all return. Like, I've never seen anybody, once you get rid of these kilohertz frequencies that are produced from all different sources, I've never seen anybody stay the same or get worse.
Right, and you get calls like me. You've saved my
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
You know when someone has changed
Yeah.
your health because you feel so dramatically different, and you usually get
Yeah.
much more sick people. They have tried everything, and then they're finally willing to take their power off, or they're losing their hearing, or they're getting migraines, or they're, like I said, gravely ill. And I just think it's important for the viewers to hear this, that you don't realize until you do these steps that he suggested how much better you're going to feel. And everybody's addicted to their tablets and their computers and their phones. And the phone should not be near you, right? You need
Well,
to
the
keep
phone-
it, and you need to keep it in the microwave if you're going to bed, right? At night.
Well, it's trying to transmit data. It's transmitting.
even off?
Well, I've seen. Yeah, it can be woken up when it's off. You know, there are even apps for that. And I've done experiments by placing the phone in the microwave oven, and the battery didn't. It didn't lose any battery power, but then left it out on the counter off, and it lost 3% every time.
Well, I
so,
also
so
saw
I don't
that
know
when
what
the
was
phone
happening.
was just sitting there on airplane mode in my home and not in the microwave, how much energy is it? Radiation and microwaves that it's emitting?
Yeah, it's producing microwave energy, so that means small waves. And by placing it in the microwave oven, the microwave oven is shielded for 2.4 gigahertz, and that's Wi-Fi. So it's like a Faraday cage. The microwave oven is a Faraday cage. Placing it inside will stop a lot of the transmissions.
Wow, I feel like we do not have enough time. Do you want to talk a little bit about Professor Martin Graham as well as Barry Trower? Because I listened to Barry Trower's almost 3 hours of. He's
Yeah.
a physicist. So what about Professor Martin Graham?
Professor Martin Graham, he's deceased, but we have a lot to thank for his work. He was an electrical engineer at UC Berkeley. He worked on the very first computer, the Maniac 2, out of a Los Alamos lab. He has 47 or 48 technical patents. One of them has to do with the guidance system for the ICBM missile.
Wow.
Brilliant man. He and Dave Stetzer came together when the dairy farmers in Wisconsin were trying to prove that the ground current was affecting their cows in the milk production. And so they came together and...
Didn't they go to the Supreme Court with this?
Oh yeah, it went all the way to Supreme.
That's huge.
Yeah,
because
and they won.
Basically, the dairy industry was being affected, and they couldn't prove, and so they kept on appealing and appealing
right.
until they got to the Supreme Court. And what was the outcome?
Well, the outcome, the judge said that you're within the boundaries, but you're reckless, and so you could be driving 55 miles per hour on the highway, but if you're recklessly driving, you're creating harm.
Right, but is that the electric company or the media companies that are providing all the Wi-Fi out there?
Well, it was the electric company, so they sued the
this
electric. It went before Supreme Courts in Minnesota and in Wisconsin, and they won in both. So we have a massive animal study, huge animal study, showing that these internal electric fields are creating sickness.
And so Professor Martin Graham was a part of advancing our knowledge about these electric fields, and obviously worked with Dave Stetzer to try to prevent.
Yeah, Dave Stetzer was really the big one, and Professor Martin Graham, and he came up with the GS unit. It's like a volt or an ohm, so it's a Graham-Stetzer unit, and you want to be below at least 33 because the science supports that low number.
And I'm, a basic person. When you say the ohm, is that what you're using to measure in my house, the electricity?
No, ohms are, that's current, that's flowing or whatever.
Okay.
Voltage. Ohms.
Okay.
I'm making those reference because it's recognized by the IEEE, Institute of
Okay.
Electronic and Electrical Engineers.
Yeah, that just like rushed right over my head.
Okay, so
But basically,
it's a real measurement. It's
a
not
real
some-
measurement.
Yeah.
This is not fictitious,
Yeah.
and that's what's so cool about when you come into people's house. Talk about what the physicist, Barry Trower, is talking about. I mean, it's a long video, but I absolutely recommend everybody listen to it because he is proving. And
Yeah.
I love when he said, "I don't need to make any money. I'm not doing this
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
any reason but to inform you."
Very brave man. Very
Yeah.
brave man. I started listening to him in the very beginning. He was one of the people that I could look at. If you look up these names on the internet, you'll see quackery, and it makes you really study the person that's talking, and are they nuts? Are they crazy? And his stuff just seemed to sound, like he knew what he was talking about.
Physicist.
Well, he was an MI5 agent, weapons expert, microwave weapons expert, and warned the world, how it was going to disrupt bees.
And and it not only talks about bees, he really talks about fertility.
Yeah.
And not only that, women's fertility is going down and men's, but once a woman's pregnant, how important it is to keep all the computer and the phone away as often as possible, because he talks about these studies that show
Right.
the effect of fetuses. And there's a theory out there, and I can't prove it, I'm just a citizen, an independent filmmaker, that the reason why ADD is so high up is because these electric fields and the Wi-Fi are coming in on these kids nonstop, or all of us, obviously, and they're now giving a pill, Ritalin, to these
Right.
young children instead of
Right.
just turning off the electricity.
Right. Well, for the last 9 years, I know that not to be true, that the Ritalin isn't the answer. You just get rid of the exposure.
Because you've met
see
too
these-
many people. Because you
Yeah.
suffered so much when you had a smart meter put on in your house in Phoenix, and then it changed your career. It was a lifelong journey to figure out why you felt so ill. And the next thing you know, you're going from house to house,
Right.
client to client. You don't. It's just interesting how you just move around. You don't want to get on planes because of the radiation, but you may go see some of my friends in San Francisco, where I'm from. But it's just interesting that you just kind of move from the person to the next person, because everybody recommends that they feel like I do, so dramatically different. And they
Yeah.
go, "You got to meet Paul."
I used to get excited, now it's boring.
What about how many
See
people
the
you meet?
results. No, just seeing the results. I see blood sugar levels in diabetics go to normal the next day.
The next day.
Yeah, the next day. Don't have to wait that long. Yeah.
Blood pressure
I've seen-
probably goes down. Even heart arrhythmia problems, right?
Yeah, everybody just, it all goes away. Leukemia, I've seen leukemia gone in 2 weeks. I've seen prostate.
No.
Yeah. And
Wow.
when I first heard that, Dave Stetzer told me that. And I thought, oh no, I respected him so much. And then he said this, and no way. And now I'm seeing
about
it time and time and time again.
What about the
Yeah.
people that have, ear Bluetooth, for the hearing? What
Yeah,
are
they wonder why they have
supposed to do?
tinnitus. Yeah. They
Tinnitus. And so did they just
tinnitus.
get
They're
rid
actually
of
hearing
those?
a frequency, believe it or not, 10 kilohertz or 12 kilohertz or something that's
Which
inaudible.
probably increases. I mean, you talked about this yesterday when I was doing my pre-interview, that the increase of suicide because when you have that much electricity going in your mind, or tinnitus or migraines, eventually your body is so imbalanced that it's changing the mental chemistry, and it's
Well, the
creating
pain.
mental illness because of the pain.
Well, the pain is just becomes unbearable, and I know I've been there. I remember the migraines. It almost, like I said, it almost killed me. That's the only reason why I'm here is because it almost killed me, and I had I had everything.
Every one of
Dementia.
these symptoms that you talk to.
Yes.
What about the phone, the Apple Watch? That can't be healthy.
Well,
We're not going to talk about products and
Right,
mix
right,
anything.
right. No,
We're just saying
I'm just-
that there's electricity going through your body quicker, right?
Yeah, well, there's those frequencies that are right there on the skin, and so they're able to go internal. There's an experiment that you can do at home, and that's just placing a cell phone or whatever up next to your chest, and stick the other arm, place the other arm out and have somebody push down on it. And
Like David Hawkins from Power versus Force, where the kinesiology of going up and down if you're holding the product or holding anything that's not healthy
well,
for you.
I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but I know how that because your cells are communicating wirelessly first, right? When you stub your toe in the middle of the night, that signal is being sent to your brain very quickly, infrared, you know.
Wow.
We can see you with a thermal imager because it's measuring the frequency.
That's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, so we are beings of frequency. I mean, we are definitely beings of frequency. I mean, my voice right now is frequency.
Right, everything is a frequency
Your
and
cells,
energy source.
right, your cells are using frequency to communicate within the cell.
So the cell phone is over there.
Yeah. Well, the cell phone's on your chest making a call. The other hand is out, and you're just much weaker, much more. You know, you're very weak compared to going outside, getting rid of that static electricity, and placing your hand in the same position. You'll bend at the waist. I've done this with bodybuilders.
Wow.
To where they were just
we
amazed.
We only have 2 minutes.
Sorry,
I could
I'm
talk
sorry.
to you forever. And like I
Yeah.
said, there should be a documentary made about you, and we'll see if it ends up being me. You have, Take Back the Power. Is that a good book for everybody to read? What books should they read?
Well, Take Back Your Power was the 2017 edition. It really gives a lot of information. Josh Del Sol made this documentary. Brilliant. It won 5 awards.
Wow.
For the best documentary film of the year. I suggest everybody watch that. And they'll see, you know, they'll get a little idea of what's coming down.
In
the
only
path.
2 minutes, the awards that Nobel Peace Prize, not peace, sorry. Prize 2013, Physiology and Medicine, the 3 professors
discovering how that communication has to happen within the cell, and when you interrupt it, you have immunological disorders, neurological diseases, and diabetes.
Yeah.
And so that's their
That's
mainstream.
the most important thing to end on right now, Paul, because there's a horrible virus out there, and really you can beat that virus with a high immune system. And we know vitamin C, vitamin A, zinc, taking care of your body, right? We don't know enough about the virus and how it's transmitted, but we do know, after talking to you, and I certainly know from my personal experience, we do know that if you don't have as much Wi-Fi and you don't have as much electricity, your immune system will be raised, right?
Well, power quality, yeah. Electricity can be there, but just get rid of those kilohertz frequencies. Get rid of the source that creates those internal electric fields, the ones that the National Institute of Health say that are an issue. So
Yeah, and you even have a quote, we'll put a study up about John Hopkins, that which is referring to specifically that this is not necessarily healthy.
well, it's showing the impedance, you know, how when those frequencies are present, they go internal.
Yeah.
And then they create internal electric fields, so we don't want those.
No, we don't. I really don't want to. But again, my name is Marcia Kimpton, and I found Paul Harding on Total EMF Solutions. What's your phone number if people want to reach you?
602-757-8624.
8624. And I'm telling you, I am a great example that my life has completely changed since meeting Paul. I'm so grateful for this. I am sleeping. It is amazing to get a good night's sleep, Paul. Thank you. And thank you for watching.